The next few poses will be done in a standing position. Please move slowly and at your own pace. Keep the sturdy chair nearby for balance if needed. If you find that I'm talking faster than you are moving, please take your time and do fewer repetitions. Take a nice deep inhale and exhale. Place the feet about hips width apart and grounded on the floor. Lift the toes and spread them nice and wide, and feel the navel pull gently in towards the spine. Push the toes into the floor and lean forward just a little bit. Feel the muscles that keep you steady. Lean back just a little bit and feel the toes come up. Feel the muscles that keep you steady in this position. Now push all four corners of the feet into the floor. Notice the steadiness of mountain pose. Notice how the steadiness of mountain pose feels. On the next inhale, roll the shoulders towards the ears, back and down so the shoulders are slightly open. Let the palms rest open to the side. Inhale and let the arms rise with the palms facing up. Exhale, bend at the elbows and allow the hands to come down the center line. Sink into the knees just a little. Repeat this again. Inhale, lift the arms with the palms facing up. Allow the hands and face to be relaxed. Continue with this movement at your own pace. Breathe as you move and try to coordinate the breath with the movement. On the next breath, lift the arms back over the head. Fingertips point in, palms face up. Imagine that you have candles in the palms of your hands and you do not want to spill them. Turn the fingertips so they face behind you. The palms remain up. Turn the fingertips to the side and then to the front like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again, towards one another, and then forwards like an offering, then out to the side walls. Breathe as you move, up to the top with the fingers facing in again. Let's do this rotation one more time. After the second rotation, allow the hands to cascade down by the side and let them rest. Pause for one slow inhale and exhale. One more breath. Inhale, exhale. This next exercise is excellent for strengthening the spine and gently stretching the muscles of the back, front, and sides. Attempt to make the movement easeful and gentle. We will do these movements with various arm positions. The first arm position is the easiest. Please be sure to stay with the one that feels best for your body. We will demonstrate them all. Take the right hand to the waist and then the left. Roll the shoulders open. And on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale to the center. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale back to the center. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And on the next inhale, gently pull the navel towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin and feel a sense of lengthening through the front of the body. On the next exhale, begin to fold gently forward. It does not have to be all the way. Bend the knees slightly. Inhale and rise back to a standing position. Open the left arm to the side. Keep the elbow bent. Leave the right hand on the waist. Inhale. Exhale, lean slightly to the right, and then return back to the center. Bring the left hand down to the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. Exhale and lengthen to the left. Return to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Gently pull the navel in towards the spine. Pull the shoulder blades softly together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward halfway. Inhale back to standing. Open the left arm again. Inhale, and on the exhale, lean to the right. Inhale and return back to the center. Place the left hand on the waist. Lift the right arm. Inhale. On the exhale, lean to the left. Inhale and return back to the center. Roll the shoulders open. Lengthen through the front of the body. Slightly pull the shoulder blades together. Get a small lift in the chin. Exhale and fold forward. Knees slightly bent. Inhale and return to standing in mountain pose. Pause for a moment. Inhale and exhale. For this warrior sequence, attempt to keep the movements gentle and relaxed. If you notice that you are struggling, move the feet closer together. Lower the arms or make the movements smaller. This pose is great for strengthening the legs, respiration, and opening the shoulders. Step the left foot forward just a few feet. The back foot points in at a 45-degree angle. The front knee bends and the hips face front if possible. Inhale, open the arms and bend at the elbows. On the exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards each other. Inhale, open the arms and push the heart softly forwards. Relax the shoulders. Exhale, bring the arms together. Inhale, open the arms to where you feel comfortable. Exhale, relax the arms inwards. Inhale, open and expand. Exhale, contract. Inhale, exhale. Bring the hands back down by the side. Return to mountain pose. One breath here. Inhale, exhale. Step the right foot forward. Take a moment, there's no rush. Ground the back foot into the floor. Bend the front knee. When you are ready, open the arms. Inhale. Exhale, bring the hands and elbows towards one another. Inhale, open the arms. This is a relaxed opening in the chest. Exhale, bring the hands and arms towards one another. Inhale, repeat again, creating spaciousness with a full inhale. Exhale, contract and relax the arms slightly. 2 more times at your own pace. Inhale, open. Exhale, close. Let the hands rest down by the side and return back to mountain pose. Pause here for a few breaths.
Welcome back to the 21st online episode of Peacetime, hosted every Sunday morning by Peacepoint with myself, Ven.Dr.Nicholas Thanissaro, live streaming from Dhammakaya International Meditation Center in Azusa, California. Today's session will be about an hour and 10 minutes long and will consist of a 25-minute talk and 20 minutes of meditation, finishing up with 25 minutes of conclusion and news updates. Last time you saw me, we looked at lethargic, escaping the procrastination and mediocrity traps. The topic for the Dhamma talk today, continuing with our theme about the defilements of ignorance, will be getting in touch with the real you and appreciating others. Again, this session, I would encourage you to send in any questions you have by emailing me at peacetime.questions@gmail.com. so that I can have a shot at answering them next time round. Even modern psychologists such as Professor Jane Kroger of the University of Tromsø say we form our identity in relation to those around us, and how we come to see ourselves as a balance between self and other. For those of us listening from the United States, the failure to appreciate the goodness of those around us is a topic we often hear discussed when the calendar year comes round to Thanksgiving. Unfortunately, such gratitude has been dumbed down to being merely a gateway to happiness or opening your heart. I think the correct term for what they're actually describing would be appreciation rather than gratitude. By contrast, in our Dhammakaya tradition, and I think for Theravada Buddhism in general, we tend to be more transactional rather than relational in our outlook on people's ability or otherwise to get in touch with their true identity. We consider misunderstanding our true identity to be more than getting locked up in our judgment or something that holds you back from tenderness. Getting in touch with the real you and appreciating others is more than just counting your blessings. So today we will try to take a more relational approach to the underlying delusions in our mind which cause blocks in our personality. The delusions that prevent us from recognizing our true identity are often based on fears, either conscious or unconscious ones, and these fears, combined with erroneous evaluation of our own strengths and weaknesses, especially in relation to those around us, cause us to have negative attitudes and behaviors which manifest themselves in the form of conceit, ingratitude, arrogance, and boastfulness. If you want to get analytical about the mental blindness or subconscious fears that give rise to these undesirable behaviors, we might point the finger at ignorance of our own level of virtue, ignorance of others' level of virtue, inability to accept anyone else's virtue as superior to our own, and glossing over discrepancy between our own level of virtue and that of others. Different combinations of these will give rise to conceit, ingratitude, arrogance, and boastfulness that I mentioned earlier. By conceit, we mean denial of favors or help received from others. By ingratitude, we mean depreciating the debt of gratitude you have to others. By boastfulness or arrogance, we mean looking down on others, or in some cases, looking down on our own abilities or potential. I grouped these defilements together because, although they are different in their manifestations, there is a big overlap in the way to overcome them. The subject I've chosen today is something we need to talk about because, as a supposedly egalitarian society, although there may be an equality of opportunities for everyone, people are not equal in the way they respond to those opportunities. In fact, every person in the world may have qualities which we could learn from. They may not be great at the same things we are great at, because we may be gifted in a specialism, Suppose we're good at golf. Does that mean we should think ourselves superior to someone who's good at tennis just because they're not our equal in golf? If we were smarter than that, we would try to find out how they got to be so good at tennis, to give ourselves the chance to be good at two sports instead of one, instead of complacently thinking that because we are good at one thing, that we are already the ultimate, as it were. So, by looking down on people, we forego that possibility to learn something from other people. If it's just a general attitude, it may be easy to laugh it off, but sometimes it can be part of a prejudice against certain groups of people, and if it happens to be people who have done something good for us in the past, if we still treat people with such arrogance, then it worsens into conceit or ingratitude. Although we are reliant on many other people to get through life with safety and dignity, wherever we live in the world, in Western society there are many factors that lead us to take such help for granted. Without special effort, being a frontline worker, especially in the pandemic era, can be a thankless task. Part of the problem is that many opportunities to express gratitude have been removed or institutionalized, because many of the things that we are helped with in life actually come from an anonymous state these days. We don't have to worry about who we're going to have to be grateful to when we get sick or taken to the hospital. We don't have to worry about who we have to be grateful to if someone robs our house and the police go after them. We think, well, I don't have to be grateful to anyone in particular because I paid my taxes. Consequently, we expect to be educated. We expect our parents to put food on our plates. We expect to be clothed because we think it's our right. So a lot of things we take for granted in society, especially compared to much less wealthy societies, can leave us with ingratitude as our default outlook on the world. This is not so much the case in societies where you can put a face to where the help is coming from. But if we're not careful, then it becomes ingrained in our way of thinking, to the point we expect certain things, and when we don't get them, we feel wronged. And so we're trying to overcome these sorts of blocks in our appreciation of good things happening in society around us. Also, appreciation of what goodness we already have in ourselves. Then, apart from developing our appreciation of goodness outside ourselves, we have to try to develop ways of seeing the relative level of goodness in ourselves more clearly. It was Mother Teresa who taught that the disease of the Western world is not so much poverty, but its loneliness and a sense of separation. A society which suffers from such a lack of appreciation has been compared to the soil that cracks up in a drought. In the dry season, the earth will be so dry that it becomes hardened, separate clods of earth. When it is as dry as that, the cracks are so deep that you might wonder whether it will ever be able to return to a smooth, uncracked earth anymore. However, all it takes is a shower of rain, and it will soon be back to normal, with no remaining cracks. Appreciation of others' goodness and knowing how we stand realistically in relation to that, and the humility we express towards others, is like the rain falling on broken earth to smooth the soil back into a single continuous surface. As Swami Sivananda once pointed out, the only difference between the words wellness and illness is the I in one and the we in other. So the outline of the talk I'll give today is that we'll explore getting in touch with the real you, specifically superiority and inferiority complexes, overcoming arrogance and conceit. After our meditation, we'll move on to explore the related topic of appreciating the goodness in others by overcoming ingratitude. We describe these defilements of delusion concerning erroneous self-image in terms of their characteristics, dangers, and ways to overcome them. And, in the absence of questions from last week, I think we will go a little heavy on illustrative stories. If any person is not in touch with the reality of their own strengths and weaknesses, their character loses its agility. Such attitudes lead our mind to be brittle and inflexible, vulnerable to breakage when the strong winds of life blow, rather than remaining flexible like young green branches. The same principle applies whether a person overappraises their qualities, which means a superiority complex, or if they undervalue their qualities, which means an inferiority complex. If you have a superiority complex, then like a bird with puffed out feathers, you give the impression of being arrogant or conceited. Often, when you are the person with the superiority complex, you will be the last person to realize your arrogance, although there are obvious telltale signs in body, speech, and mind. Physically, even the posture of an arrogant person is unyielding. They will be physically unable to bend their body or to express humility, such as lowering their head in deference or accepting contrition. Verbally, the words that come out of an arrogant person's mouth are just another expression of the way they look down on people. The boastful words they say are nauseating to all who hear them. They will exaggerate anything that adds to others' admiration of them, whether it's name-dropping, how great they are in meditation, or even how strictly they keep their precepts. Mentally, arrogant people have a puffed-up quality, a failure to evaluate their strengths and weaknesses according to reality, by overestimating themselves. Although everybody else may be laughing at an arrogant person behind their back, but they think that the bee's knees. And if they are blinkered as to their shortcomings, then it can be a particular obstacle for them to make any sort of spiritual transformation, because they are unable to acknowledge any flaws or weaknesses in themselves. The dangers of having either a superiority, and this can apply also to its flip side, the inferiority complex, include the way fixed, erroneous self-image destroys your chances of improvement, destroys friendships, and destroys the fabric of society. Children who lord it over others because of parental privilege will eventually come to grief. Eventually, when they listen to no one's advice, they will be beyond help from anyone. Arrogant people will be touchy even about trivial things, which grow into disagreements that breaks up friendships. Arrogant people will settle for nothing but elitism as long as they are in the elite. They don't respect the rules, and they always expect exceptional treatment. What would happen to a society where everyone behaved like that? To illustrate the perils of overestimating one's strengths, I'd like to tell you two stories about the dangers of erroneous self-evaluation in relation to others. The first is the story of arrogance, where someone overestimates themselves. The second is a story of reverse arrogance, of an inferiority complex. First story is a story of a bad old dog, or maybe in modern-day parlance, and I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say it on air or not, the badass dog. The dog in question thought he was pretty cool because no matter who came in his house, he would bite them all. So if the mail carrier came, he bit the mail carrier. If visitors came, he would bite the visitors. And he thought he was pretty much the best dog around because there was no one he couldn't bite. So, one day when he was sleeping contentedly near a house, having bitten a lot of people, he overheard a conversation between the people in the house. Some grown-ups in the house were describing an animal they'd seen in the forest. One of them said, "You know, we saw a tiger the other day." And there was a little boy also in the house who exclaimed, "Ooh, a tiger! What's a tiger like?" So the grown-ups explained that the tiger has got really big teeth. And overhearing this, the dog thought, really, I've got pretty big teeth myself. The people's explanation continued that the tiger has huge claws. They explained to the boy, if a tiger ever gets their claws into someone, they would tear them into little pieces. Hearing this, the dog thought, yeah, I'm pretty much like a tiger then, because I've got big claws as well. Next, the people explained to the boy, and if you ever hear a tiger growl, the sound is like thunder. So the dog concluded, "Yeah, when I bark, it's pretty loud, so whoever these tigers think they are, they must be way inferior to me." Finally, the boy asked, "Where do you go if you want to see a tiger like that?" The grown-ups replied that they'd seen the tiger in the jungle, just behind the house. So the dog thought, "I'm going to show that tiger what I'm made of," and early the next day marched off into the forest. Before long, he heard the sound of the tiger, and when he came face to face with it, he thought, "I'm going to show you." But before he'd had the chance to even finish his thought, the tiger had already eaten him up for breakfast. This is a story which goes to show that sometimes, because of our ignorance about our own strengths and weaknesses, we can overestimate ourselves. So, if you have delusions of grandeur and infallibility, beware, especially if you hope to progress on a path of spiritual transformation. The second story is about what happens when we underestimate ourselves, a story which was often told by the vice abbot of our main temple in Thailand, Lompo Dattachiwo, to illustrate how people can be held back by having an inferiority complex, the so-called trance of an unworthiness. Once upon a time there was a flock of sheep that lived in a valley, and above the valley was a steep climb up to a mountain. The mama sheep always warned her little lambs, "Never go too high up the mountain because there's a dangerous lion living up there." One day when they were grazing the valley pastures, the mama sheep found a little fluffy ball which was still alive, so she decided to adopt it and bring it up alongside her lambs. In the beginning, the difference between the lambs and the fluffy ball was not so great. The size was about the same. But as time went on, the little fluffy ball started to grow much more quickly than the lambs. The other thing which the fluffy ball started to notice about himself was that the constant diet of grass seemed to be somehow unsatisfactory. Usually the little fluffy ball would play alongside the lambs, but as soon as they went on to play and have rough and tumble with the lambs, then the lambs started to get seriously injured. The little furry ball tried to bleat like the lambs, but the sound never came out quite right. One day there was a big storm that caused a flood in the valley. The flock of sheep was forced to climb higher up the valley than they normally dared to go. During the storm in the valley, the furry ball heard a roaring sound coming from high up in the mountains, a roar like thunder which seemed to awaken something inside him. And when he heard the roar, instead of being afraid and running away like all the other lambs, he felt emboldened. There was a sense of familiarity in that sound. When he tried to imitate the roar, he found he could do it. He roared along with the sound he heard in the distance. Meanwhile, all the other sheep cowered and started to realize that their little adopted brother was not who they thought he was. When the furry ball wandered further up the mountain, he came face to face with the majestic sight of a roaring mountain lion. At that moment, looking in a puddle, he caught a glimpse of the reflection of his own face. What he saw there was not a sheep any more, but it was the miniature of the face of the mountain lion. He realized at that moment that what he had assumed all his life, that he was nothing more than a sheep, or that all he could expect from life was to follow the flock, was a delusion. He realized his true destiny was much greater than that, and he continued on up the mountain to be reunited with his true community. So, looking down on yourself can be a tragedy, because it holds you back when you could be solving problems in your own life. So, let's spend a few moments looking a little more closely at some of the dangers of the ways arrogance gets expressed, whether intentionally or unintentionally, in the form of conceit, arrogance, or boastfulness. Sometimes it can come in the form of denying favors or help received at the hands of others. It can mean realizing others are superior to you but being in denial about it. It can mean pretending you are of equal status to those who you know are actually better. In other words, one-upmanship. It can mean belittling the goodness of others. It can mean not acknowledging favors received. There are different ways in which people are condescending to others, looking down on them or shunning them. But it is foolhardy to look down on people for their financial status or appearance or intelligence, because any of these things can disappear overnight. Just as a house fire can relegate a rich man to poverty overnight, if you become conceited, it can undermine any privilege you previously had. On this topic of looking down on others, the founder of our Dhammakaya tradition, the great abbot of Wat Phak Nam, taught that to look down on others, even without realizing it, seeing others as weaker than oneself, speaking irreverently to them, is like the gables of a house being burned by a fire which has spread from the lower stories. Even the smallest house fire will spread to the gables. In the same way, the resentment of juniors can destroy the person who governs them, unless they are compassionate and wish only happiness to those around them, especially those less privileged than themselves. Conceit can impede your true perception of reality. If you harbor conceit, eventually you will not be able to see anything according to reality. The decisions you make about what you say and do will bring only harm to others. Secondly, conceit will get in the way of learning from others. If we assume ourselves to be superior to others, and by virtue of our skills or experience or behavior that we are superior to them, then we cut ourselves off from the opportunity to improve ourselves further. Thus, even if you are better in some things, never allow yourself to have the feeling that there is nothing more that you can learn from others. Otherwise, you will lose a lot of your curb appeal. The third thing is that conceit leads to the loss of whole bodies of knowledge. When students are arrogant and boastful, it makes teachers reluctant to teach the entirety of what they know. When the untaught knowledge dies with those teachers, then the knowledge is lost completely to future generations. Finally, conceit can impede your meditation progress. Anyone who still has tendencies towards boastfulness should fix this before it interferes with progress in their meditation. Boastfulness will lead you to exaggerate or lie about the extent of your meditation progress, causing you to lose any progress that you have achieved. When inner experience gets worse, instead of realizing that you're on the wrong track, then you'll end up doing stupid things like accusing the meditation teacher of favoritism for newer students who came after you. You should speak only the things that you have actually achieved, and in this way your words and your mind will be in tune, and your words will be sacred. On the subject of conceit, there's another story I'd like to tell you about 3 homeless guys. The background to the story is that in ancient India, if they couldn't find an heir to the throne, they used to release the royal chariot. And wherever the chariot stopped, the person there would be crowned king. So, they trusted in the fact that any person who has good enough fortune for the horse and chariot to end up in front of them must be a person fortunate enough to run the country. And it happened that it was one of these 3 homeless guys who was the guy who happened to be where the chariot stopped. Maybe you can guess which one in the picture it was. So, the next day, the first homeless guy was anointed king of that land. And of course his 2 friends, the other 2 homeless guys, thought, "He's our friend, so this is bound to be good for us as well." The first friend went to the palace and he knocked on the door, and when the guard asked, "Who is it? What business do you have coming to this palace?" he replied, "Well, you know, I'm a friend of the king. Let me in, he knows me." And when that second homeless guy got inside the throne room, he slapped the king on the knee and said, "Hey, how does it feel being a king then? Anyways, now you're king, can't you do something for me as well?" Because of his inappropriate manner, forgetting himself that he was still the homeless guy and he wasn't the one who had been made king, he got thrown out of the palace on his ear. The third homeless guy, when he came to the palace, was much more humble and polite. And when he approached his friend, he didn't treat him like he used to, but he treated him with reverence, because he realized that overnight his friend had been transformed beyond recognition, in the degree to which he could change things in society, in the amount of responsibility which he now shouldered. So the third homeless guy didn't forget himself, and he spoke in a very humble way to the king. He simply reminded the king that he was there, and if there was anything which the king saw fit for him to help with, in his humble state, he would be very glad to serve. He didn't try to pull strings about his shared past with the king, and because of that, the king saw the potential of his friend, that he hadn't forgotten who he was, and because of that, he elevated him to a position of responsibility in the palace. So, sometimes we can forget things because of our situation when we don't see the big picture, especially when we don't see how we fit into it. So we need to be honest with ourselves, and we need to avoid the assumption that everyone is exactly the same. We have to accept that we are all on different stages of the learning curve for different subjects. Armed with this knowledge, while being able to see ourselves clearly for what we are, it would help us to know where we have room for improvement in our own characters. So if we want to overcome any tendency to conceit, boasting, or arrogance in ourselves, some special considerations we need are, firstly, not to compare ourselves with others. Instead of comparing yourself to others, compare yourself with what you were like yesterday. If today you are better than yesterday, then you can be satisfied. If you examine yourself in this way, then conceit will not develop. The second thing is to be thorough in all that you do. You need to think what is appropriate for the likes of yourself before you do it. Are we dressing too lavishly for our social position? Should we be driving such a flashy car when our boss drives a much smaller one? If you do things inappropriate to your status, you will end up always surrounded by enemies. You need to be careful when you express opinions. The manner of speech of a humble person is gentle but not weak. Refer to people by their appropriate titles. Be especially careful if your own boss is in a bad temper. Look for ways to make your ideas look like your boss's own idea. An idea doesn't have to be recognized as yours to make it a good one. Never forget that you're never the best, there is always better. And thirdly, before we come time for our meditation, we need to reduce the tendency to boast or exaggerate, while learning to defer to others. Being humble means not looking down on anybody, whoever they may be. Know who you are and where you stand. Remind yourself of how much more you need to learn, and you will find that it is quite humbling. Cultivate a respectful outlook toward others, and note that respect is not the same as humility, because humility means not looking down on others or comparing yourself to others. Respect, by contrast, is the quality of looking only for the good and positive things in yourself and others, so that you can learn the maximum for yourself. Any boastfulness or arrogance we have is derived from erroneous self-evaluation, so we need to learn humility and how to estimate our own worth according to the reality. A compelling reason for us to meditate is the way it softens the mind, indirectly helping us to overcome arrogant, conceited, or boastful tendencies in the mind, and allowing us to evaluate our own strengths and weaknesses according to reality. To this end, before we go further to look at the related topic of appreciating the good in others, we take the opportunity to settle ourselves for some meditation. If you would like to find a comfortable sitting position for yourself now, as you listen to my guidance. So allow your eyes to close gently for meditation. careful that you've closed your eyes as lightly as possible, with your upper and lower eyelashes touching only very gently together. If you can get closing your eyes right, then the rest of the meditation will be easy. If you close your eyes gently, the muscles of your face will become soft, and all the rest of the muscles in your body will become relaxed in the same way, all the way down through your shoulders, arms, hands and fingers. All the muscles in your trunk, both legs, down to your feet and your toes. All this follows from closing your eyes in the correct way. So don't overlook the importance of this, even though you hear the same advice every time there's a guided meditation. So there's nothing holding you back from attaining the triple gem inside yourself. Because our time left in this world is limited, death can come to us at any time and without warning. So it's better to make sure your meditation technique is effective, so that you can make a breakthrough in your meditation without unnecessary delay. The meditation can then be a refuge to us, and we will be reassured, confident, and relaxed. And any of the tasks concerning our pursuit of perfection will come to fruition much more easily. Pursuing perfection will be more of a pleasure to us. So we should start out in our meditation correctly each time. And we bring our attention gently to the center of the body. We give ourselves the feeling that at the center of our body there is a bright, clear sphere, as bright and clear as a diamond or a mirror, or like a drop of water, like a crystal ball inside us. And we keep our attention on this bright inner object as continuously as we can, for as long as we can, lightly and gently. You can use the sound of the mantra to help keep your mind free of thought. Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang, Samma Arahang. If you find this useful, to keep your attention continuous at the center. If you can keep your mind on both things, the inner object and the mantra, it will keep your mind free of distraction, because distractions will only get in the way of accessing the inner experience. They cause us to feel weighed down both in body and in mind. Our mind will feel blocked and unwieldy, narrow, claustrophobic, and unable to enlarge. Therefore, the only way to gain levity of both body and mind is to relocate our attention within the space of the body. If you notice the teachings of the Buddha, where he advocated letting go of our attachments to everything, whether it be animate or inanimate objects, to let go of our attachments and grasping, because these fetters are of no benefit to us. They cause us to feel weighed down, both in body and in mind. They blot out the inner source of brightness. They cause us to lead our lives unskillfully. So if we remind ourselves of the Buddha's teaching, whether we start with ourselves or work our way gradually outwards, or we start on the outside and make our way gradually inwards, as we reflect, we can look at our own bodies, hair, skin, teeth, fingernails, toenails, and the way they deteriorate, in spite of our best efforts with cosmetics. It means that they are of a nature to fall apart. It applies to our bodies, our clothes, glasses, jewelry, are all of the same nature. They have a limited lifespan. We reflect from the inside out. Our furniture, homes, have a limited lifespan. Our cars and investments, land and assets are temporary. Our neighborhood, the roads that connect them, the municipality, county, country, and even the globe and the universe itself eventually fall apart. So we need to let go of our attachment to any of these. Pinning our happiness on any of these things is of no use to us. It imprisons our mind by hitching it to things that are without ultimate meaning. We can live out our whole lives without coming to an end of material attachments to worry about. If we think of those things which are external to ourselves, they cause us to feel weighed down both in body and in mind. They blot out the inner source of brightness. They impede us from attaining the inner bodies and the triple gem. This is why, throughout the 45 years of his teaching, the Buddha constantly returned to the teaching of non-attachment. No matter what teaching he started out with, his conclusion would always be to underline the nature of conditioned things. That is, impermanence, suffering, and not self. If we reflect on these truths momentarily each time before we meditate, it only takes a minute, that all conditioned things are impermanent, even our own body, and are of the nature to fall apart. It will allow us to be able to let go. If our mind lets go of attachments to things outside ourselves, no matter whether they come to us via our eyes, ears, nose, taste bud, or touch, any of the five senses, our mind will return within the space of our body and more easily come to a standstill at the center of the body. If the mind comes to a standstill within, inner illumination will arise. The opportunity for us to make the inner journey of the mind will dawn for us. Our mind will feel as if it has broken free from all forms of unwholesomeness and harm previously present in our lives, as if we put distance between ourselves and all the mistakes we formerly made in our lives. without having to spend time in the confessional. It is like all the sins of our lives have been shed as the mind becomes still, crystal clear and bright, and inner vision will arise for us sequentially, inspiring us to cultivate virtue in our lives. The mind becomes increasingly subtle and refined. The deeper the mind reaches, the purer it becomes. It becomes so pure that we can see the purity of our own mind as a crystal sphere inside us, at our center. It is purity that goes beyond merely a feeling of purity, but allows us to bear witness through vision arising out of insight. A clear sphere that is the culmination of perception, memory, thought and cognition. The shedding of unwholesomeness from the mind is more than just our imagination, but a real phenomenon, the increase of purity within us. Becoming purer while at the same time shedding defilements from the mind. In the same way as the peel or the shell breaks cleanly away from some tropical fruit, the defilements fall away cleanly from the mind. Sometimes when the mind is becoming very still, but we have nothing new to keep the mind's interest, our concentration becomes hidden in the shallows, because we are trying too hard. We are focused too much on the results or on new experiences. Really, our enthusiasm for progress is appropriate only to get us to sit for meditation in the first place. But while we are actually sitting for meditation, we need to stop, which means just letting our mind be. We need to stop our grasping, because we know from the Four Noble Truths that it is the root of suffering, even if it is grasping after something wholesome like enlightenment. Unfortunately, it is mixed up with delusion, the incomplete knowledge, meaning that we have no new inner experience to show for our meditation, because we have grasping mixed with our meditation efforts, sometimes by stealth, so that we don't even realize we are doing it. Everyone wants a breakthrough in their meditation, but we go about it in the wrong way. Therefore, we have to stop by letting the mind be. Even if there is nothing new for us to see, we must observe without interfering. It doesn't mean we are getting no benefit from the meditation, because every time we meditate, we collect up happiness in the mind little by little. The mind will gradually be purified and clarified, and our ability to meditate will gradually accumulate, like termites bringing grains of sand until they've built a huge termite mound, or like watering a tree at its roots. The tree grows a little every day, but we are never able to tell how many inches it has grown in a day. But after some time it starts to bear fruit. Meditation is similar. All we need to do is close our eyes gently, relax our body, bring our mind softly to a standstill inside, without worrying about what results the meditation will yield. Don't think to yourself it ought to be brighter instead of dark inside. All we should be doing is observing without interfering until the mind reaches a point of equilibrium where it can be attracted toward enlightenment. Later, when we become more adept in recognizing and guiding our states of mind, we can bring the mind to equilibrium intentionally. But at this stage in our meditation, we have not yet reached that point. So we need to adjust our approach. It doesn't mean we'll never reach the point of mastery, but for now we need to remain mindful of all the advice we have heard on approaching our meditation. Otherwise, when we get to the good bits in our meditation, all the advice goes out of the window and we can't stop ourselves applying the wrong sort of effort. If in doubt, we just reset our efforts, make a new start, pretend we are new to meditation like a child. In the meantime, don't deny or resist whatever inner experiences come up in the mind. We should be content with whatever arises in our meditation. Be friendly to whatever comes up, even if it is darkness or if there's nothing new. For as long as we enjoy our experience of meditation, our inner experiences will sort themselves out. It will be a majestic transformation inside that no money could buy, that is beyond compare. An experience that comes together with subtle joy and happiness, which inspires us to extend compassion toward all living beings without exception. So we train our mind to rest at a standstill, in brightness and clarity at the center of ourselves. Whatever there is to observe on the inside, be it darkness, light, images, or otherwise, we observe without interfering, continuously, without entertaining any thoughts in our mind. As a meditator, it's not our job to analyze what we see or run a mental commentary. So we train ourselves in this way, both when meditating and even as we get up to do other things in our lives, whether standing, walking, sitting or lying down, whether eating, speaking or exercising, until having our mind at the center becomes second nature. We already have all the knowledge we need to succeed in meditation. No matter who you are, inner experience awaits you within. So it's not a question of whether the breakthrough will come to us, it's just a matter of time and consistency in our practice. We adapt our practice to continue alongside whatever life may throw at us, like a point of stillness at the eye of the storm, or an oasis in the desert, attracting abundance into our lives on all possible levels. So we continue to train our attention lightly, gently, and continuously at the center of the body for a few more moments now in silence until we come to the appropriate time. So allow your eyes to close gently for meditation. Sappha Buddhanupavena, Sappha Dhammanupavena, Sappha Sankhanupavena Sattha Soti Bhavantu Te. So if you'd like to come to the end of your meditation for today, you can gradually open your eyes again. If you feel at all uncomfortable, then slowly try changing to a more comfortable position and gently finish your practice. So, having looked at the perils of being deluded about the level of our own strengths and weaknesses and the dangers of conceit, arrogance, and boastfulness before our meditation, we turn now to the related mental defilement of failing to appreciate the goodness of others. Failing to appreciate the goodness of others means depreciating the debt of gratitude you have to others, forgetting your debt of gratitude to others, or being completely blind to favors received. It is a personal trait that means more than mere disloyalty. The dangers of ingratitude include that no one will want to help you a second time. Beware of people who speak ill of whatever company or community they have just left when they meet up with you for the first time, because you can be sure that if they ever leave your company or community, they will say the exact same thing to their next prospective employer or community. Another danger of ingratitude is that society will become more selfish. Recent research indicates that people who count their blessings tend to be happier and less depressed. There was a study by Brown and Wong in 2017 of nearly 300 adults struggling with mental health concerns, and they found that significant improvements in mental health occurred in a group of people who wrote 3 weekly letters of gratitude to another person, as compared to participants who wrote down their deepest negative experiences or did not do any writing activity at all. The findings suggested that gratitude unshackles us from toxic emotions, and that gratitude helps even if you don't share it, and although gratitude benefits may take time, but it has a lasting positive effect on the brain. At this point, I'd like to tell you the story entitled Trying Again, of a lady who persuaded a homeless man to join rehab. The story comes from Lenore Pimentel of Santa Rosa, California, and was published in The Sun magazine and republished by Jack Cornfield in his book No Time Like the Present. So, the narrator in the story is Lenore during her time at a DHSS office in California. The man was my age, but he looked many years older. He was an Army veteran. He was also homeless, cold, and hungry. I could see that he had tried to wash up before coming to the social services department to ask for help. His face and hands were clean, but his clothes were filthy. And although he claimed not to have had any alcohol that day, the smell of it seeped from his pores. I wanted to get him into rehab, and I asked if he was ready to come in off the streets. "No, ma'am," he said. "All I'd like is a few dollars and some bus tickets. If I can get sober enough, they'll let me into the shelter across town." That shelter had 50 beds, cots really. The homeless were admitted at night and forced out at dawn to eat breakfast at a nearby charity. 50 beds and nearly 1,000 homeless in the city. Winter here in Northern California means cold, rain, and mud. Even though this man and many like him slept under bridges to keep dry, the dampness penetrated everything. His clothes and the bedroll he'd placed on the floor smelled moldy. The pages of a book he'd carried were swollen. I asked how many times he'd tried rehab. 2 or 3, a long time ago, he said. Maybe it's time to try again. I explained that I had a client who had gone through the program 7 times before it took. Besides, I said, we're months away from warm weather. What else have you got going on? I watched his face as he considered my offer. I thought I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes, followed by a shadow of doubt. He'd tried before. It had been hard, impossibly hard. But so was living on the streets. Finally, he lifted his head and looked at me. I reached for the phone. "Shall I asked. He barely nodded yes. An hour later, I handed him over to a recovering alcoholic, also a veteran, who would drive him to one of the best rehabilitation facilities in the county. "Come visit me when you graduate," I said as they left. I barely recognized the man when he came into my office 6 months later. So tall and handsome, smelling like the outdoors, and holding a huge bouquet of flowers. When considering special strategies for overcoming any possible tendency to ingratitude, we should bear in mind the words of Henry Nouwen from his book The Return of the Prodigal Son. The choice for gratitude rarely comes without some real effort. But each time I make it, the next choice is a little easier, a little freer, a little less self-conscious. Similarly, from lack of awareness as to how others have helped us, we can make a special effort at first to appreciate things we are grateful for. But the process should not stop there, as we should go on to try to find ways to repay those who have helped us and ultimately honor the goodness of those who have initiated favors to us. When looking for ways to overcome ingratitude, start by bearing in mind if a person does you a favor and you return the favor, that is not the end of it. So, what more can you do for a person who has initiated a favor? It's mostly to do with your attitude towards that person, because you now owe them a special sort of sympathy. You'd always be looking out for that person in a special way, maybe more than for a person who you weren't connected to by such a favor in the past. You should therefore do what you can, and unless the person is particularly close to you, like a parent, let's say, in which case I would argue that you probably do more than just what you can, you would really need to have helping them out as a high priority. Maybe you would go out of your way to help them. But for a person in general who has done something good for you in the past, I would say that, given the opportunity, you would always do what you could to help them. The general way in which especially Asian societies work, where gratitude is more prominent in the sense of awareness in society, is when people are more grateful, then you feel happier about helping each other. Maybe more than they would in a society of strangers or people where you had no way to know whether they will be grateful for your help or not. So, if you are in a society of give and take, then people would be happier to help and more forthcoming in helping one another because they expect that favors are not going to be lost on the recipients. If you don't know where to start, a simple place to start is try to be grateful even to your own body, for all the benefits you have derived from it by maintaining your health and using your body only for positive deeds. And a final word of warning, lest gratitude become overly transactional, it is not seen as good practice to call in favors in return. It's generally considered bad manners ever to ask for a favor back. It should be something others want to do out of their own volition. In a culture of gratitude, you wouldn't be sticking your neck out too far to trust that any person seeing you in a situation of need would want to help you back without having to be asked. So, calling in favors generally isn't considered part of that culture of gratitude. So, in conclusion today, we have talked about the antidotes specific to arrogance, boastfulness, conceit, and ingratitude. But now, as we reach the conclusion of our talk, I'll leave you with some general advice that applies to all the manifestations of self-image delusions I have mentioned today. Firstly, you need to check yourself regularly for false and negative views. Although we will talk more about false views in detail in a couple of sessions' time, in brief, false views are any inaccurate mindset we have about life, the world, and self-transformation that present major obstacles to our path of progress. Part of throwing off our arrogance is to make sure that we are not entrenched in any of these unhealthy sorts of views or trapped in the groove of stubbornness. Secondly, try to avoid people with negative attitudes, especially flatterers, while associating only with those who are good friends. Good friends have the ability to wake us up to our delusions on a regular basis. Such people may be teachers or elders, but they might even be responsible friends or those who have a lot of virtue. Such friends will influence us to be thorough and detailed in all that we do, never looking down on any work or situation. If we have the feeling that we have a tendency towards arrogance, the sort of person who represents the biggest danger for us is the flatterer. By avoiding arrogant people or the sort of people who are likely to flatter you, you will be less likely to forget yourself or think that you are already the ultimate. You will be better associating with people who always point out your faults. You will have a more refreshing life because you'll always get to learn new things every day about the things you can improve on in your life. This is the essence of spiritual transformation. Thirdly, if you're going to find fault, then find fault with yourself, not others. Otherwise, you'll come to the conclusion that nobody in the world is perfect, except for you. Generally, if you can change yourself in respect to a problem, even if other people are involved, this is normally a much more pragmatic way of doing something about the problem. Therefore, don't go fault-finding when you look at others. If you like finding fault, then look for faults with yourself instead. Lastly, with any sort of wisdom concerning self-image, you need to start learning from an early age. If you miss out on it when you're young, it tends to be quite hard to catch up on it later in life. So don't overlook simple things like teaching children to say please and thank you, or teaching children to express their appreciation of other people's good aspect, or giving gifts out of appreciation for things. All these small things will stick in children's minds from a very early age and have a powerful good influence on them later in life. If children can see the benefits received from their parents, later they will be able to identify the goodness in others in society. If they are unable to see goodness received from their parents, it's unlikely they will be able to identify the goodness in anyone else. If we have a society full of people who don't appreciate goodness in each other, then people will become less and less enthusiastic to help others. On the contrary, when there is an ethos of gratitude in society, then people will want to help each other in a very natural way, and people won't be embarrassed to be helped either, because they know they'll try to find ways in the future to help other people back, even if it's not the same person, or a person in the same sector of society. Everyone will see help received as an opportunity to be able to do something for someone else in the future. Some news that caught my eye recently that holds some hope for the future came from Brainerd, Minnesota on December 14th, 2020, of a pay-it-forward scheme that spontaneously occurred at a Dairy Queen Grill and Chill drive-thru. A customer told the cashier, "Whatever the customer behind me orders, tell them it's already covered." And 2 days and 900 cars later, the chain went on unbroken. So the potential is certainly there for a society that truly values the goodness in others. It stands to reason, since we are all part of each other's lives, that we need to be constantly tuning up our ability to understand and welcome one another's help. So let me finish up with a quick mention about temple support and a news update about the availability of meditation teaching in English. At the moment, with the extra strict stay-at-home order statewide in California, anyone wanting to make a contribution to the temple in person should contact the temple first. If you would like to bring food to the temple during this period, all you need to do is phone up Crystal first on 626-991-6958, and a monk in PPE will come to receive the offering and give a short blessing at the temple gate. English-speaking monks will be on duty on Wednesdays and Saturdays. As for temple donations, You are probably already familiar with all the details by which you can transfer donations to the temple without attending in person. Needless to say, the whole temple would like to rejoice in the merits of all taking the opportunity to support the temple in this way. Meditation is particularly valuable in this COVID era to help us cope with the extended lockdown. And in this respect, here at the temple, although there's still no face-to-face teaching sessions for the interim, you can still access Dhamma teachings in English at the YouTube channel called Peace Point Meditation or the Facebook page of Peace Point Meditation. For those of you who have been following my talks, you may be interested to subscribe to a YouTube channel which I recently set up in my own name, which can be found by searching for Ven.Dr.Nicholas Thanissaro on YouTube, where I've uploaded more than 100 clips of meditation, Dhamma talks, funeral talks, talks for children, and so forth. Meanwhile, there is a streamlined schedule by popular request for 2021. Every Sunday morning, you've now got me with live material and archive material on alternating Sundays. Venerable Sopon now appears every Thursday evening. Meanwhile, Peace Breaks from Peace Point are broadcast every Monday and Wednesday between 7 and 7:30 p.m. There is a silent meditation broadcast each Friday between 7 and 8 p.m. For the benefit of families listening in, there's also a special show for children in English known as Shining Stars that goes out between 7:30 and 8 p.m. every Monday evening with bedtime stories and meditation short enough to keep the attention of younger listeners. Outside of the live streams and on-demand programming, there's also the newly updated MindGem app, which you can download for free, allowing you to listen to meditation and Dhamma talks in English on your cell phone, even when you are offline. So, this session we have looked at the topic of getting in touch with the real you and appreciating others. For my next live session online with you, which will, fingers crossed, be a week on Sunday morning, we'll be moving on to look at something along the lines of acceptance and commitment. For good measure, I would like to remind viewers that even better than posting thank you or great talk or sadhu in the broadcast comments, you can email your questions about meditation or what you have heard in the lecture to the email address, as you can see spelled out in the slide, and I will do my best to answer these on my next session. In the meantime, try to stay healthy, avoid recklessness or complacency in the face of the virus, maintain a positive mood, speak only positive words, forgive others, extend good wishes to others, and meditate daily. Also, despite the cabin fever or lockdown, may you be well and truly able to identify your strengths or weaknesses in life according to reality and overcome any tendencies towards arrogance, conceit, ingratitude in your life in a way that the year ahead this year can be one which is better than the last. So for today, this is me, Ven.Nicholas, signing off for this session. So long, folks, and stay safe.